My name is Stacy,
Deshaun.
Brian.
and welcome to the DeFences podcast. Question number one. The playwright makes the case that sons repeat the sins of their fathers. Do you think Corey and Lyons will repeat Troy's mistakes? If they are repeating it, what would it take to break that cycle? Me personally, I don't think that Troy influenced Corey or Lyons enough for them to grow up and be like him.
I'll say my opinion is Lions is more than likely to be more like Troy than Corey, but I feel like if somebody were to break the cycle, it'd more than likely be Corey. Reason why too is because Corey has always been the more independent, wanted to be away from his father, while Lions, he never really got the chance to follow his father, but yet I say DNA, stuff like that. Lions end up in jail, stuff like that, and yeah.
Me personally, Deshaun, I think that the children will not end up like Troy because Troy was not a good father figure nor a man in general.
Troy was the type of father that he was due to his very traumatic past. Troy's father didn't care for him as well as brutally physically assaulting him and proceeding to molest his adolescent girlfriend. To me, when your father does that to you at a young age, that's something you can't come back from, and you don't look at your dad the same way. So being a dad for him probably was hard after seeing how his father treated him. And Troy even said it himself. Sometimes I wish I hadn't known my daddy. He ain't care nothing about no kids. A kid to him wasn't nothing. All he wanted was for you to learn how to walk so he could start you to working. And that's the thing that I think that's just going to set Troy apart from how his dad was. Because you got to think, you're not going to want to grow up and be like the man that did that to you.
Yeah.
One thing different from Troy and his dad is that Troy cares and wants something to come out from his kids.
Yeah.
One statement that proves is in the story of Fences is conversation between Troy and Lyons. Says, what that mean, Bonnie working? I don't care if she working. Go ask her for $10 if she working. Talking about Bonnie working. Why ain't you working? And then not only that, Troy, like, he said he don't have to love his child, but deep down, truthfully, I feel like he personally loved his child. Unlike his father, I really don't think he loved Troy at all.
The first thing that I think will change with Corey and Lyons is I don't think they will be as strict with what their kids want, simply because of what they endured with their father, because they know how it feels to want to do something, but your father is crushing it. Like, the only father figure you have is crushing your dreams and stuff and not being supportive, and they know how it feels, so they wouldn't want to push that on their kids. And just like when Lion says, I don't bother nobody, I just stay with my music, because that's the only way I can find to live in the world, which give us insight on how he might be more lenient on what his kids do, even if he has kids at all. Corey also says in the story of Fences, I can't work after school during the football season, Pop. I tried to tell you that Mr. Stewicky's holding my job for me. You don't never want to listen to nobody. Here, Corey is upset with his father because he wouldn't let him play football. So I imagine Corey would be much more lax if his child decides to play any type of sport, coming from he knows just the feeling of being oppressed with sports, and you really have a chance. And Lions would just be more lax with whatever his kid wants.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely do think Corey gonna be more lenient and like let his kids do more, because like look at, for example, with the TV. He wanted the TV, and his pops was like 200. Like, they was mad about the price. Like, I think that they won't be like him in that sense. Like, for example, when Corey wanted that TV, According to the text, Corey says, "I don't know. They got them on sale for around $200. $200, huh? That ain't that much, Pop." At this moment, we see how teenage Corey wanted something and how his father wasn't so eager to go out and get it. I think this will translate to Corey's adult life because I can see him going above and beyond for what his children want simply because he wasn't given the same privileges as a child. I honestly don't even think Lions would have children in the future, but if he did, I could genuinely see his wife wearing the pants and being the main provider for him and his kids. The reason I say this is because throughout Fences, with the smallest amounts of screen time that Lyons did receive, he never seemed to be an independent, hardworking, hands-on worker like his father. Lyons instead focused on what he enjoyed, which was begging and making music.
Yeah.
Overall, I do think Lyons and Corey both built their own
Yeah, like they their own person.
identities and mannerisms that leads me to believe neither of them will grow up heavily influenced by Troy and being a father just like he was to their kids. Do you want to switch to question number 3 right quick?
Yeah, we can.
All right, question number 3 says, is the fence in the play meant to keep people out or keep people in? What if the fence Wilson is really talking about is the limitations some people face in the world? What invisible but powerful fences created the circumstances for the Maxon family in this play?
I think the fence in the play is to neither keep people in or out. I think the Arthur August Wilson is trying to give a demonstration of both sides, using Troy as a way to keep people out and Rose more so to keep people on the inside. I see this all throughout the play. At the beginning of the play, we see the first take on this with the football situation, with Troy telling him he can't play and potentially ruining all of his football chances.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you because Rose throughout Fences, she was more the mediator. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like she, be for real, when did she ever get into it?
I only ever seen her act on any type of madness more so towards the end.
Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, she was really chill, cool, calm, collected throughout it all. Like, she didn't really do a lot. So,
Yeah, only like one time.
yeah.
The reasoning behind Troy not wanting Corey to play sports, I feel like, is because when Troy played back then, black males did not have the same chance as whites. While Rose realizes and sees that the world is evolving and changing around them, which is why she's more lenient with the sports and letting him
Yeah,
play.
like, she want to let him live.
Yeah, and then she thinks it. So she just overall, I feel like she thinks it's okay for Corey to play football. Another example of how the author tries to show both sides of the quote-unquote fence would be when Troy and Corey physically got into the altercation in the yard. When Troy said, "Yeah, I'm crazy if you don't get on the other side of that yard. I'm gonna show you how crazy I am. Go on, get the hell out of my yard." Here, the fence is literally being used as the barrier between the yard and Troy.
Yeah.
Troy wants Corey to leave up out of his yard. Another example of a fence or a barrier in fences would be the fact that they are African American. This is a barrier because back then African Americans weren't treated equally as humans and were automatically at a disadvantage within America.
Yeah, for sure. Like, back then in America, like, you gotta think you had the Rosa Parks, the Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, like,
Yeah.
all this stuff is going around his time. So it's like African Americans is having another choice, a harder chance.
Yeah,
But my bad for cutting you off. I'm gonna let you get back to your piece of evidence.
Yeah, you good, because it's like they had to deal with segregation and like discrimination, all that stuff. So it was definitely hard and,
Definitely difficult.
yeah. One piece of evidence that stuck out to me was the quote, "If they got a white fellow sitting on a bench, you can bet your last dollar he can't play." the color guy got to be twice as good before he get on the team. That's why I don't want you to get all tied up in them sports. Man on the team and what they get them. They got color on the team and don't even use them. Same as not having them. All them teams the same.
This piece of evidence essentially serves as two pieces because we see why Troy doesn't want Corey to get wrapped up into sports.
Yeah, like Troy wants Corey to earn an honest living, like working with his hands.
Yeah, he had Corey keep that job at the A&P, and then Troy worked as a garbage collector. So that's all he knew was working with his hands. The other part that makes this piece of evidence seem like two is because of the discrimination against African American athletes that they endured on a day-to-day basis. Brian, do you got anything to add?
Yes, actually, I do have something to add. There's this one quote from Fences, and it says, when Bono said, some people build fences to keep people out, and other people build fences to keep people in. Rose wants to hold on to you all. She loves you. Here, Bono is solidifying how the fence has a double meaning and how fences can be used as barriers within people.
Overall, there are several moments within fences that show both sides of the fence being offensive and defensive throughout the play.
I definitely agree.
I heavily agree. We kind of deep into this podcast thing, but do you realize we skipped number 2?
We skipped question number 2. All right, well let's get back on that then. Question number 2 says, do you believe Troy when he says he doesn't want Corey to be at all like him? What does he want for his son?
Well, during the whole play, Troy and Corey never saw eye to eye. Corey was focused on sports, slacking chores,
Lying to Troy.
and only doing what's important to him. You know, he was trying to follow his father's footsteps, but in doing so, he was also ignoring what Troy wants him and trying to tell him what will happen in college with sports. And Troy's reasoning behind all of it is because back then, Troy himself also played baseball, and truthfully, it got him nowhere. No matter how great he was, it got him nowhere.
Yeah, baseball didn't get him anywhere.
But not only that, at the time, it was a white person's sport and rarely black. So, do I believe Troy when he said he doesn't want Corey to be all like him? I do believe that. One thing Troy wants for Corey is, and I quote, he ought to go and get recruited in how to fix cars or something where he can make a living.
Yeah, Troy also wants Corey to work, have a job, just something working on his own. When Troy said out, he went out because he knows I want him to help me with this fence. I know how he is. That boy is scared of work. He ain't done a lick of work in his life.
Yeah, that part does stand alone. And throughout the whole story, Troy had always talked about what he wants for Corey. You know, no matter what had happened between him and Corey, because they did always tend to get into altercations, disagreements, just a whole lot. He never wanted what had happened to him to happen to Corey.
One quote that resonated with me was, you ain't never gave me nothing. You ain't never done nothing but hold me back. Afraid I was going to be better than you. All you ever did was try and make me scared of you. Corey here is expressing to Troy what he thinks and how he feels about his father. This is also a defining moment for fences, for Corey as well as for Troy, because it's the turning point of the story where it starts to transition to Corey growing up being his own man, as well as Troy finally meeting his fate.
I agree. That part definitely confirms the issue between Corey and Troy. Here's this one moment where Corey and his mama, Rose, had started to go into something. And here's one quote. Mama, I got something to tell you. I don't know how to tell you this, but I got something to tell you. I'm not going to Papa's funeral. This moment here stems the lifelong issue and trauma caused by Troy within fences. Corey went on to say, the whole time I was growing up, living in his house, Papa was like a shadow that follows you everywhere. After constant talk between Corey and Rose, Rose went on to tell Corey, "You can't be nobody but who you are, Corey. That shadow wasn't nothing but you growing into yourself. You either got to grow into it or cut it down to fit you. But that's all you got to make God with life. That's all you got to measure yourself against the world out there. Your daddy wanted you to be everything he wasn't. And at the same time, he tried to make you into everything he was. I don't know if he was right or wrong, but I do know he meant to do more good than he meant harm. He wasn't always right. Sometimes when he touched, he bruised." That quote alone gives an answer to both what Troy wanted for Corey and how Troy didn't want Corey to be like him.
I 100% agree.
Since we are going to pass a little bit of questions, let's do question 6.
Question number 6.
Yeah, question 6.
All right, man. Come on. What it say?
Okay, question 6 says, why do you think Wilson chose not to have Alberta make an appearance on stage? What are your thoughts on how women are portrayed in the play in general?
I think Wilson chose not to include the character Alberta on stage simply because she was genuinely a side filler character that was just used as like a prop to set up the cliffhanger within Fences. Like you see, like she didn't talk. She never, she doesn't have much involvement in Fences besides being mentioned by Bono and Troy, as well as being the woman Troy ultimately decides to have the affair with.
I agree. I really do agree. I had never looked at it like that exactly. Let me just go ahead and add on to it. I do think we should have gotten at least a couple of lines from her, such as when she was in the hospital, her breaking the news down to Troy, or even her eventually finding out where Troy was hiding another family from if she ever did find it out, because I feel like that would have been another big part, at the cliffhanger as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It would have added more like bulkiness. Like the story would have been more different angles to see. One thing I did notice in Fences though is how women are portrayed kind of as side and or complementary characters. For example, look at all of the female characters in this play. Do you notice a pattern? Rose is the wife who gets cheated on. Troy's daughter is introduced briefly at the end, and we never hear from Alberta nor Bonnie during the entire play.
You is right. The ones especially are treated like kind of the man accessories.
Yeah.
Especially Rose.
Rose, like throughout the whole story, she doesn't get aggressive. She doesn't talk. We don't see what she does. We don't get much info on her. Another piece of evidence that goes along with that perfectly is when Bono said, "Rose will keep you straight. You get off the track and she'll straighten you up." Here he is further signifying that women are portrayed as accessories and side backup characters. Another reason I say the women are viewed as accessories to the men is because the way women were talked to, talked about, and described during Fences. Like, Brian, the way they were describing the women, they were talking about their body. Like, do you see what I'm saying? This isn't really, they weren't treating the women as if the women were people. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree, because especially if like in this new generation, the way how you treat them, if you treat them then now,
that's not acceptable. That wouldn't fly. Like, for example, when Bono said, "I don't know about the Indian part, but she damn sure big and healthy. Woman wears some big stockings, got them great big old legs and hip as wide as the Mississippi River." Bono here is undeniably describing the woman he saw as if she was an object. This type of language towards women is common and normalized all throughout the play of Fences. Another quote from Troy is when he said, "Then, when I saw that gal, she firmed up my backbone. And I got to thinking that if I tried, I just might be able to steal second. Do you understand? After 18 years, I tried to steal second."
Rose's feelings or emotions weren't regarded at all when Troy said that to her. I think Wilson also has the character speaking like this because the main character, as well as the main plot of the story, is about men during the 50s, which is how they definitely talked and treated women back then.
Yeah. I just want to build on what you saying by saying, like, although it was normalized back then, looking back at this language and how that women were treated back then was astronomically disrespectful and not acceptable by any means. Brian, we just finished question number 6, so let's head over to question number 5. Question number 5 says, is Troy a good father? In what ways does Troy's relationship with his own father influence his parent style?
I think the main way Troy's father had an influence on his life as a father would be how he looks at life and his value. The reason I say this is because the way he raised his kids and how he treated them was extremely similar to what he learned from his father. And when Troy said how he's gonna leave with 11 kids and where is he gonna go, he ain't knew nothing but how to farm. No, he was trapped, and I think he knew it. But I can't say this for him. He felt a responsibility towards us. Maybe he ain't treated us the way I felt he should have, but without that responsibility, he could have walked and left us and made his own. Here, he admits his father didn't treat him the best, but always felt the responsibility to his children, which exactly how Troy was a father to his kids.
And I definitely agree. And I would just like to add one piece of evidence that you didn't say, but I just want to mention it right quick. Troy further proves that he feels he owes a responsibility to his kids, just like his dad when he said, like you, I go out of here every morning, bust my butt, putting up with them crackers every day. Because I like you. You about the biggest fool I ever saw. It's my job. It's my responsibility. You understand that? And man got to take care of his family. Here we see how Troy feels just like his father did with him owing a responsibility to his children. Troy, in my opinion, is obviously definitely an improvement over his father for the simple fact that he wasn't as damaging to his kids as his father was to him.
That's a wonderful add-on, Stacy. I strongly agree on everything you just said. And since you was the one here that said add-on, Deshaun, you got any add-ons?
Another quote from Troy is, he said, so we down there enjoying ourselves, ain't thinking about nothing. We didn't know Gray Boy had got loose and wandered back to the house, and my daddy was looking for me. We down there by the creek enjoying ourselves, and my daddy come up on us, surprise us. He had them leather straps off the mule and commenced to whooping me like there was no tomorrow. I jumped up mad and embarrassed. I was scared of my daddy. Here we see the ultimate breaking point between Troy and his father, which ends up with Troy walking 200 miles down to the mobile.
Definitely.
To get away.
Pittsburgh, yeah. When he walked down to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And then, to get away from his father and the plantation he worked on.
Although Troy had a horrible father who did unforgivable things to him, he was willing to forgive his father and put the past to the side.
That's actually nice to know. Do you have a quote that I like to back that up?
I do actually. When Troy said, I don't know what happened to him. I done lost touch with everybody except Gabriel. But I hope he's dead. I hope he found some peace. This gives us an update on how Troy feels about his father and how he was willing to forgive him, wishing he was able to finally rest in peace. The major difference between Troy and his father and Troy and Corey would be the amount of hatred Corey felt for his father.
And you know, Corey also had similar situations where Troy put him above his breaking point. But the difference is Troy was abused and saw his girlfriend be raped by his father, which was very wrong. And I know that was like traumatizing to see. But Corey had to quit football due to him being disrespectful about lying and not doing his chores. Troy also called and said, that boy lied to me. I told the nigger if he wanted to play football to keep up his chores and hold down that job at the A&P. That was the conditions.
This isn't an unreasonable requirement, and in my opinion, Troy genuinely wasn't wrong for what he did. He told his child to do something, and he did it, so obviously there must be consequences.
Like, yeah, with the consequences part, I feel like that's just like a normal thing. Like,
Yeah, everybody got consequences
yeah,
with their
it's
parents.
just, yeah. But it's like, after Troy and Corey physically got into it, Troy said something that stuck out to me. Troy says, you right. You 100% right. I done spent the last 17 years worrying about what you got. Now it's your turn. See, I'll tell you what to do. You grown. We done established that. You a man now. Let's see you act like one. Turn your behind around and walk out this yard. And when you get out there in the alley, you can't forget about this house. See, because this is my house. You go on and be a man and get your own house. You can forget about this because it's mine. You go on and get yours because I'm through doing it for you.
Troy here shows resemblance to his own father by inevitably forcing Corey to leave just like his dad did to him. I believe Troy said this because this was the only way he knew how to respond. Troy himself had to find his own way walking 200 miles at 14-year-old, which explains why he expects Corey to now leave and go out and find his own life just like he had to. In conclusion, I do believe Troy tried to be the best father figure possible for all his children with upbringing that he had come from.
I would have to agree with you there. He didn't really have a good God. Like, he didn't really have a good standpoint.
Yeah, like he didn't really have a good guidance.
Yeah, good building blocks to build off of.
Last but certainly not least, what was number 4?
Question number 4. Do you believe that Troy is a good person? In what ways is Troy a sympathetic character? In what ways is he unsympathetic?
I think Troy wanted to be a good person, but because of the way he was raised, he didn't know how. Troy didn't have a mother, nor did he have a respectable and reliable father figure
Definitely.
to look up to and learn how to grow and become a man. Troy shows us what he thinks the man's role and place is when it comes to providing for his family.
I mean, although Troy was brought up with a detrimental background, that doesn't excuse all of his actions throughout Fences.
When Troy decided to have an affair with Roberta and cheat on Rose, this to me is the defining point that proves that Troy simply isn't a good person. Yes, he went through what he went through as a child. Was traumatic,
I see what you're saying.
But you should never cheat. Like, especially if you are married to somebody for years.
Yeah. I agree. And then especially when the part when Rose said, I done tried to be everything a wife should, everything a wife could be. Been married 18 years and I got to live to see the day you tell me you've been seeing another woman and done father a child by her. And you know I ain't never wanted have nothing in my family. My whole family is half. Everybody got different fathers and mothers. My 2 sisters and my brothers can't hardly tell who's who. Can't never sit down and talk about papa and mama. It's your papa and your mama and my papa and my mama.
I feel like here you can see clearly Rose in distress about the affair, even to the point where she starts to ramble on about how her family is half, and now she essentially has a stepdaughter with Troy, with no other mother figure in her life. And the fact that Troy was willing to do this and not feel any sort of remorse shows what type of person he really is and how he operates.
Yeah, I definitely agree for sure. Like, even when he tried to explain to Rose why he did it, he never gave a legitimate reason. Instead, he gave her a baseball analogy and using Alberta as basis within analogies.
And I don't think that was a good comparison.
That's not, you don't do that to no people. Like, people aren't baseball.
Yeah, like, I feel like he always just tried to make everything about baseball. And Troy says, I got to thinking that if I just might be able to steal second, do you understand after 18 years I wanted to steal second? On the other hand,
Troy has moments within Fences that make you question if he is genuinely a bad person or a person who wants to do right and doesn't know how.
The main moment that describes this is, ain't no sense on you blaming yourself for nothing. Gabe wasn't in no condition to manage that money. You done what's right by him. Can't nobody say that you ain't done what was right by him. Look how long you took care of him till he wanted to have his own place and moved over there with Miss Pearl. Quote, here, Troy felt guilty for taking the money Gabe received from his headshot wound while at war and using it to fund their home.
Yeah, that's really messed up, honestly.
I don't know, I feel like he did the right thing.
Yeah,
it was
he was just supporting his family.
Yeah, because you got to think, what was Gabe going to do with the money?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he wasn't going to do nothing, but at the same time, you know.
I mean, I think Troy did the right thing here because it benefited everyone, including Gabe. until he decided to leave. I also believe that it was the right decision because Gabriel wasn't mentally nor physically able to handle the money.
I can't understand that part.
All right, so that was the DeFences podcast. This is Stacy,
Brian,
Deshaun.
everybody have a great day.
Y'all have a wonderful rest of y'all day, man.